I watched a bride sob in the bathroom while her groom stripped at the reception last month. They celebrated 30 years together. Have you ever been so certain about something, only to discover how spectacularly wrong you were 10 years ago? I witnessed what I was absolutely convinced would be the shortest marriage in history. My college roommate invited me to her cousin Ellie's wedding part, a beautiful June ceremony at a historic church followed by a reception at an upscale country club. Everything looked picture perfect until I spotted the groom, Mark, taking shots with his groomsmen in the church parking lot an hour before the ceremony. By the time Ellie walked down the aisle, Mark was swaying slightly, his eyes unfocused. The priest, clearly noticing his condition, rushed through parts of the ceremony. When Mark fumbled the rings, dropping them with a loud clang that echoed through the church, I exchanged glances with other guests. This wasn't just wedding jitters parned. This was a disaster unfolding in real time. Somehow they made it through the vows. At the reception, things went from concerning to catastrophic. While Mark continued drinking with his college friends, I found Ellie crying in the women's restroom, her carefully applied makeup streaking down her face. He promised he wouldn't do this, she whispered when I asked if she was okay. His family has a history of alcoholism. He swore he'd stay sober today. I awkwardly patted her shoulder, offering tissues and platitudes about wedding day stress. What I really wanted to say was, run, get this marriage annulled tomorrow. When Ellie finally composed herself and returned to the reception, the DJ announced their first dance. Mark had apparently taken dance lessons as a surprise for Ellie, but in his current state, he kept missing steps and eventually steps on her dress, tearing the delicate lace hem. The real breaking point came during the garter removal. What should have been a quick, playful moment turned into an impromptu striptease. Mark started by loosening his tie, then removing it entirely as his friends cheered him on. Next came his jacket, then his shirt, all while Ellie's grandmother watched in horror. Stop it, I heard Ellie hiss, but Mark was too far gone. By the time he was down to his dress pants and undershirt, Ellie's father intervened, physically steering him away from the center of the room. I left the reception early, certain I'd be hearing about their divorce within months. On the drive home, my roommate and I made terrible jokes about the wedding gift we'd given them, paint expensive coffee maker that would likely outlast their marriage. Fast forward 10 years, I lost touch with my college roommate and had completely forgotten about Ellie and Mark until last month when I was back in my hometown for a job interview. While having dinner alone at a local restaurant, I spotted a couple in their early 50s at a corner table, toasting with champagne. It took me a moment to recognize them, Perrin, Ellie, and Mark. They were celebrating their 30th anniversary, surrounded by what appeared to be their adult children and a few close friends. Curiosity got the better of me. After their family left, I approached their table and reintroduced myself. Ellie remembered me immediately and insisted I join them for dessert. That wedding, Mark said, shaking his head when I mentioned our last encounter. The worst day of my life and the best decision I ever made. He explained that the day after their disastrous wedding, he woke up so ashamed that he called his father, penned himself 20 years sober parrot, and asked for help. He hadn't touched alcohol since. Everyone told me to leave him, Ellie said, reaching for his hand across the table. But I knew that wasn't who he really was. As I left the restaurant that night, I thought about all the judgments I'd made over the years, parn about relationships, about people, about what makes a marriage work. Sometimes what looks like a relationship's lowest point is actually the catalyst for its greatest strength. The coffee maker, by the way, finally broke last year. Mark and Ellie outlasted it by decades.